Loudoun County, Virginia, the scene of so much drama over these past few years. That's where the Loudoun County School Board is trying to stop parents from speaking at their school board meetings. And if they do speak, they want to prevent them from having camera time. They don't like that these parents and their thoughts are getting attention. For more on this, let's bring in Ian Pryor. He's a senior advisor to America First Legal and has been all over these Loudoun County issues. Ian, great to have you back with us, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Vince.
How is it after all these years, after all these scandals involving the Loudoun County School Board, they decided, you know what? Let's just make it worse for ourselves again. Let's just start banishing parents from speaking.
It's really, I don't want to say impressive, but it is an impressive display of stupidity on their part. I've said this before. I don't know where they're getting their legal advice, but just about every step of the way they have failed. Whether it's their former superintendent, who they could have fired well before they did, but said, no, we're going to hold on to that guy. Or, school board members in private Facebook groups going after parents speaking at school board meetings, not releasing an independent report on the sexual assaults when then they were forced to release that independent report by a judge. This is just another in a long line of things that if it ever gets to court, they will find that they have violated the constitutional rights of parents by denying them the ability to express themselves on camera. Hey, they're giving them the opportunity to comment, right? They're putting the cameras out there. That is something they've traditionally done. Now, if they make a decision to take that away, and that is based on the viewpoint of the speakers or the vast majority of the speakers, that is unconstitutional.
Yeah, they're just embarrassed that people are being critical of them, so they're trying to hide it. They want to hide the criticism from the public. So as of last week, the Loudoun County School Board voted to turn off the cameras during the public comment period for fear that the public would hear from their neighbors. How long is that going to last? No cameras for public comment?
Yeah, well, it's no coincidence, I think, that they made this move after you started having new members of the community that really hadn't been to school board meetings before to speak up against the bathroom policy, the pronoun policy, the transgender policy 8040. You had members of the Muslim community, members of the Hindu community, all showing up now and giving speeches about this. And, right after that, they say, we want to make sure that we can just paint the parents that are upset as the white, Christo-fascist, Catholic, evil, WASP parents, as opposed to the reality, which is that it's a diverse group of people that are going out there and saying, this is not something that schools should be doing.
This is a smart point. So what they're scared of is not just the criticism being seen publicly, but they're scared for racial reasons that the criticism is seen publicly. Because among the people who are criticizing the Loudoun County School Board are Hindu people and Muslim people. They're coming out and they're making these claims, and Loudoun County wants to conceal this.
Exactly. They want to be able to have that same talking point that they've consistently trot out and have their little strike force of keyboard warriors on the outside talking about this is just angry white racist insurrectionist. I mean, you just throw in whatever you want, right? That's what they want to portray parents as.
So as I understand it, Nick Minnock, who's of course from WJLA, and he's just fantastic, he's been all over this, that is the Loudoun County School Board meeting as we speak. They're meeting right now?
So it's a committee. It's a 3-person legislative and policy committee. It's unclear. They're debating public comment. They're talking about potential changes to public comment. We've heard a lot of different things. I'm not sure what's true or not, but I've heard things like they're going to limit public comment to 4 times a year, right? Once a quarter. Which of course, now that they've shown their true colors, now that they've gone out there and said, well, we don't want any more Jerry Springer moments, and we don't want people going out there and getting their 30 seconds of fame. All right, well, now pretty much everything that you do to restrict public comment, it's going to be clear that this is either at best content discrimination, at worst viewpoint discrimination, and they're going to find themselves in hot water in court if they continue down this path.
I noticed that the people who support censorship of the public are the Democrat-supported candidates on the committee. Is that a coincidence?
Again, not a coincidence, right? I mean, it's pretty clear that this whole thing is motivated by politics. And, look, I don't love everything that I hear when somebody goes up to speak at a school board meeting, right? A lot of people go there and they say some things. I'm like, that's, I don't agree with that, or that's over the line, or what. But hey, they have the right to say it to the school board, to express, their support for a policy that the school board is doing. Just like people have the right to go express their opposition to a policy. That is what, the public function of the public body is for. And that is what public comment is for. And they'll say, well, these school board meetings last so long. Well, yeah, you spend like an hour coming up with proclamations, right? Like, April is chocolate peanut butter month, appreciation week, or, it's crazy.
Yes.
You can't sit there and say that our meetings are too long because of public comment and then spend all this other time on virtue signaling and saying, well, we need to keep that in there so that, all the chocolate and peanut butter feels good about themselves.
This is such a weird thing, because if you told me about this 10 years ago, I'd be like, what in the world? A school system that doesn't care about the parents, in fact, has active contempt for them? And these are, by and large, parents showing up to these school board meetings, expressing themselves. What is the message here in terms of the Loudoun County School Board's attitude towards the parents of the children that are in their care?
It's really quite shocking. That is their job, right? Their focus is administering a school division and doing it on behalf of the taxpayers and the parents that send their kids there. And they are far more focused in acquiring power. First, they'll campaign on transparency, right? And then they get the power and they say, no more transparency. We know what we're doing better than you do. And we don't like being told that anything we're doing might be problematic. So go pound sand, right? And then you go and say, well, all right, what about things that have to do with my child? If, they put these gender support plans and they say, well, you don't have a right to know about that either. So we're not going to tell you about that. And you can't come to the school board and complain about it. So you can't go to school and say, I want to know this stuff. They'll say no. And then you can't now go to the school board and speak about it because they're going to just shut you down or limit you, once a year or twice a year or whatever it may be. And and again, like you watch the average school board meeting, and I can't tell you just how ridiculous some of the things that they're doing are that have nothing to do with their job function.
Governor Youngkin responded to this, talking to Nick Minnock at WJLA. He said that he's going to work to make sure that he can preserve parents' ability to have voices to the school board that are seen and heard, because I know who the school boards work for, and that's parents, said Governor Youngkin. He's right about that. What should the governor do here, and what kind of power can he wield? Is it possible, for instance, for them to strip funding from a place like Loudoun County Schools until parents and citizens are adequately represented at these meetings?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things in his wheelhouse. I do wonder, on the civil rights, the Human Rights Act, if what we're looking at is, or even under the Constitution, right? What is the Attorney General's power? What is the governor's power? I don't necessarily have an answer quite yet on that. But the bottom line is that, as I've said, this is a violation of the First Amendment rights of, Loudoun County community members. And whether it's the federal Constitution or the Virginia Constitution. So the question is, what can the governor do to enforce Virginia's constitutional rights? And, I'm not quite sure that power flows to the Attorney General or not. It might. Certainly would flow to the Loudoun County Commonwealth Attorney. So there's a couple of different options that I think that they're going to have to look pretty strongly at to see this kind of thing cannot happen. And I'll tell you, you look at some of the other states around the country, and Massachusetts, right? Liberal Massachusetts, of all places, had a very similar case that made it to the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, where they created a restriction saying, you can't be mean during public comment. And the SJC said, no, you can't do that. That's content discrimination. That is unconstitutional. And so it's one of those areas where when you actually get to court, generally, even more liberal judges, they'll look past the substance of the debate that sort of triggers the issue, and they'll say, look, you can't do this, right? Whether you're silencing conservatives or
right.
or the left, like you cannot do that,
Yes.
right? We are a society that, in public forums like this, values public debate. And when you start shutting that down, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of the law.
Right, and if my memory serves correctly, I think it was Loudoun County where what ends up happening sometimes is that these public comment periods are actually corrupted because the left-wing school board members will tip off left-wingers and left-wing organizations that, hey, the sign-up period for the public comment thing is open now. You get in there before the rest of the public finds out, and then they stack the deck in the public comment period.
Well, if you go back 3 years to the June 22nd, 2021 school board meeting, right, the one where Scott Smith got arrested,
right?
That was going to be the one where they start debating policy 8040. Now, forever, you'd sign up on a Friday, right? The Friday before the school board meeting, you would sign up, and that's how you get into public comment. Except that day or that week, they decided they were going to open it up on a Thursday. Now, nobody that was showing up in opposition to that policy, that wanted to speak in opposition to that policy, knew about that until maybe an hour and a half had gone by, right? And then you see, if you go back and look at that meeting, well, the first 17, 18 speakers are all supporting the policy. Right. So that was cooked in there. And then they said, well, the next day was Juneteenth. Like, come on. Like, we know exactly what you were trying to do. You were trying to cook the books and get your supporters in there first, get the news cameras capturing them, and hopefully everybody got bored by the time they got to number 18.
Yeah, big time. All right. So what can be done in Loudoun County? What kind of energy is there right now, Ian Pryor, among the parents? I know they've done so much. They've had to fight so many things with this school board. Is there going to be some useful patriotic heckling going on at some of these school board meetings? Are people going to be protesting outside? What do we expect?
Yeah, well, the next school board meeting is Tuesday, so obviously it comes during spring break, so we'll see what kind of attendance is there. But there are a lot of parents that are ticked off because one of the things that's coming up is a debate on whether to adopt the governor's model policies or not. So conveniently, these public comment changes are coming before that happens. Once again, showing us exactly what they are up to. So there's been a lot of angst building over the school board on a variety of things, but that policy, the governor's model policies and 8040 is still there, and people are getting very frustrated. And you now add this to the mix, I could certainly see these meetings becoming sort of go-to events again, even though I guess they won't be must-see events because they don't want people to be able to express themselves beyond the four corners of that room.
And by the way, people should capture this on their own cameras too. Do whatever you can. Get those cameras up in the air and capture this. If the government doesn't want you to see it, you still have a right to record it. This is a public meeting. And record this thing and share it with the rest of us. That's a public service. Ian Pryor, man, always so grateful for all of your work on this issue and so many others. Thank you so much for your time today, sir.